excuse me, Rosemary Bonani. This is the Buttery. The Buttery is the room that would be like the refrigeration room, because there was no refrigeration, and the Buttery is so many steps below the rest of the house, and it was always cooler. One of the things they did was after they milked the cows in the morning, they would come in and pour the milk into these crocks. They would go to a nearby lake, get chunks of ice, put it in here. This would keep the milk cool. In the summertime, when they could not get ice, they would go out to their well, and way down the bottom of the well, the water was cooler. So they would put it in here. It had to be changed several times a day because it would warm up. One of the things, we call this the Buttery because this is where they made butter. Now in those days, they made it in the wooden churn. Well, we didn't do that. We don't use the churn. Well, we do the hands-on. We put heavy cream in this. This is sort of like a little modified butter churn. Heavy cream goes in here, and we just crank it and crank it and crank it until it turns into butter. When it turns into butter, there's also a portion of it that's like the buttermilk rises to the top, and we would pour off the buttermilk. They would pour it off, and they would drink it, and they would use the butter to put on their homemade bread, which they would have at the hearth. We did not bake this at the hearth today, but we would always bake it and put the butter on the bread. And one thing that they did with the butter also, to be a little fancy, if it were just the family eating, they might not do this, but if they were having company from the nearby farm, which a nearby farm may be miles and miles away, they would make the butter a little fancy. All kinds of butter molds. You'll notice up here, these are all butter molds from that era. And they would just put the butter in here, stamp it out, and when company would come, they'd have a little bit fancy, because even the moms back then wanted things to look a little nice for company. Various things in here. This room was also I guess you would call the laundry room, because this would be their washing machine. Fill this up with water, put in the soap, and they'd make their bars of soap here, and they used it for everything. They used it for washing themselves, for washing the floors, for in here the lye soap. When they'd be finished, they'd use this to pull it out, wring them by hand, and go and throw them on a bush out in the backyard. If Dad didn't have enough time to string up any kind of a clothesline, they'd just throw it on the bush. As previously was said, the children all had chores. Most of the chores were shared. Some of them just the girls did, some of them just the boys did, but most of them they shared the chores. Another thing, we had irons. The irons where there was no electricity. This would go in the fireplace, get hot. This would sit on top of it, and once that was hot, they would iron with it, and they had to keep reheating that piece of, I believe it's like soapstone. Basically, that's what this room was. Anything that needed to be kept cool was in this room, and also it sort of acted like the pantry too, as you see, and a lot of the stuff is authentic pieces that people have donated here. I guess that about tells what the Buttery is. Thank you.